Hello, I'm Horace Douty in Lexington, Virginia, and each week I bring you a history lesson, local history lesson, by way of YouTube. And I encourage you, if you enjoy these presentations, subscribe to Horace Douty, D-O-U-T-Y, YouTube, and also hit the like button and the little bell icon so that you'll be reminded when these videos are up. And share these videos with your friends and your family. I appreciate that. Today, I'm standing in what was for many years called the Stonewall Jackson Cemetery in Lexington, Virginia. It is now renamed the Oak Grove Cemetery, primarily for this oak tree which is behind me. This huge tree is historically named the Preston Oak, and it is listed in the Historic Trees of Virginia, a book chronicling the more aged and famous trees in our state. What is interesting and almost amusing is that Colonel John Preston was famous here in Lexington. He was flamboyant, he was good looking, he was smart. He is mostly known now for being the founder of Virginia Military Institute, VMI, back in 1839. John Preston left his mark remarkably in the annals of history. He's buried right here, and so are his two wives and his family and some friends that he allowed to be laid within this iron fence behind me. The Preston Oak, one would think, is named for John Preston. It is not. What is curious, and I think funny, is that this famous good-looking guy who always got his way, won every argument, this tree is named not for him, but for his small wife, Margaret Junkin Preston, his second wife. Margaret Junkin is the daughter of Dr. George Junkin, who was president of Washington College back then, and she is a remarkable poet. She wrote poems that sold all over the South, and she was called the Poet Laureate of the South, Margaret Junkin Preston. And she's lying here, of course, with her husband. This tree, I measured it just a few minutes ago, and at 4 feet off the ground, it is a full 60 inches in diameter. That means, by using the formula given to me by the United States Forest Service, a red oak, which this is, you multiply in inches the diameter by 4. So this tree is at least 240 years old, maybe older, but it is at least that old by the measurements and the formula that we use to measure age. It probably is not quite 100 feet tall and has a wing spread probably of 100, limb spread of probably 100 feet, and has watched over this graveyard for a long time. And incidentally, this graveyard started out not as the Stonewall Jackson Cemetery, but as the Lexington Presbyterian Cemetery. Then, after Jackson was buried here in this graveyard, and a monument erected to him, it was named Stonewall Jackson Cemetery, but for reasons of political correctness, it is now Oak Grove Cemetery. Now, let me tell you something else about little Margaret Preston. She wrote, during the Civil War, she wrote a book called Brook, A Rhyme of War. And that book sold so well that little Margaret Preston paid for the construction of Beechen Brook Chapel, which is down at Jordan's Point, just half a mile from here at the Maury River. And that is where the terminus of the James River Canal from Richmond to Lexington ended. And right there at that wharf, at that dock, at that terminus of the canal, large 100-foot boats gave access to the world for the first time in Rockbridge history. Rockbridge is hard to access by land. Always has been. It's easier now that we have interstate highways. But Margaret Preston built that little church to take care of the sailors who were stopping there by the dozens and hundreds. The church is still there. It is now converted to for housing, a very beautiful Gothic style building. And that is a tribute to Margaret Junkin. Bless her heart, she knew how to handle John Preston. In fact, she refused to marry him on the same wedding day of his first marriage. She said, no, I've got to have my own wedding day. He said, you'll marry me that day or you won't marry me at all. And she said, goodbye, John, we're finished. That was the first time John ever lost an argument. He relented and he made the marriage date one day later than his first wedding. Margaret Preston was small, but she was a force to be reckoned with. John Preston met his match. There, the Preston Oak. There is your history lesson in Lexington, Virginia for today. What are you saying, Jake?